Welcome back to Survivor Analytics. I'm the voice of the people. My name is Jack. It's good to be back. We had a couple of guest hosts last week. Thank you to Carrie and Alexis, the true experts both, for filling in last week. And it was the Mergatory episode. So a big one for Clyde and I to miss. Clyde, of course, the true expert. He's not with us this week. But here's the good news. A, we've got a great guest host with me. And B, Clyde can't shut me up when I say, thank God Rome is gone. Oh my God. I'm just so glad to see him no longer on this show. The villain of the season is gone and we are free. So the Roman Empire has fallen and we are in what I would call the Middle Ages of this season. I think that's fair. But with me, it's time for the introduction. With me, my co-host this week, friend of the show, longtime listener, first-time co-host. Say hi, Zach.
Hey, everybody. Zach, one letter different from Jack. Probably very much more so voice of the people rather than true expert. So I guess last week, a lot of expertise on the show. This week, a lot of people.
Yes. I would also point out that our names have two letters different. But
that's correct. See? Even more lacking in knowledge than I first advertised.
Zach, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to do exactly what I did to Carrie the first time she was on the show. Who is your favorite Survivor player of all time?
Ooh, that is a very interesting question, and this is probably a terrible answer, but I think I only really first started watching Survivor, like, adjacent to Carrie.
Yeah.
A while back, maybe like 3 or 4 years, and while doing that, I was immediately drawn to a challenge beast by the name of Terry. I think he's been on a couple seasons. Don't remember exactly which season I tuned in on when I was watching, but I thought his style of play of just I'm gonna win and there's nothing you can do about it. I thought that was very entertaining to me because initially growing up, Survivor I had seen through the lens of my parents watching it when I was a kid, and they were always paying attention to the strategy, and I think Russell Hantz, that was one of the seasons they watched back when I was little. I guess I thought that was unique. I know that's not a very deep answer in the grand scheme of actual Survivor, but it stood out to me when I saw it.
Listen, I think whatever draws you to the show is valid. I love a challenge beast. I think enjoying a challenge beast's play style, right? There's something to be said for enjoying somebody who's out there to hustle on the playing field and not on the sidelines. We're really the voices of the people this week. How many seasons have you seen? Because I have seen however many we've done on this show, which I think is 5. I think that math is right. And then also David versus Goliath. So I've seen 6 seasons. How many have you seen?
I am going to guesstimate 4 or 5 with random episodes interspersed throughout. David versus Goliath, I've seen Pearl Islands. And then I think I've watched 3 or 4 modern Survivor era seasons.
Okay, well, so with our bona fides established ahead of this episode, let's jump in here. We are out of the Mergatory. I believe we are fully merged. The new tribe is called Becca or Beka. I don't know if I ever heard anyone say it out loud. The first thing we see on this episode, and I think it's a good place to start, Rome goes home and there is one vote red that is not Rome, and that is Saul's vote for Andy. And immediately after Tribal, there's this air of Saul has to make things right with Andy. Andy is on the hunt. He's on the warpath. Teeny comes to Saul and says, you need to make peace here. How do you feel about this modern trend? And again, this is 2 people who have not seen a ton of Survivor, but it seems like it's a emphasized facet of this season where if your name is written down at all, people have to explain themselves to you, right? How do you feel about that? Do you think that's a opportunity for new collaboration? Saul certainly spins this, or do you feel like it's kind of a overplaying?
I think in a general sense, I lean towards it being overplaying. Certainly don't divulge this information if you don't feel the need to. But I think the way Saul went about it, kind of like what you said, was pretty well done and worked more to his advantage than it did his disadvantage, especially with the way he was able to throw in the fact that he wasn't the one who actually came up with the idea of Andy's name, and that was actually stemming from his original tribe members, which I think kind of shifted Andy's ire from Saul, the person who wrote his name down, who was just trying to play safe, over to the people who threw his name out into the air to begin with.
Yeah, and so when Saul gives up that Sam was the one who said, let's have Andy be the backup name in case Rome has an idol, Andy goes into full villain. So we literally get, I would say, probably some of the most night vision to start an episode that we've had in this season, because Andy stays up late talking to Saul and then wakes up early. He's up before dawn, sitting on the beach. We're getting flashbacks of his relationships with Sam and Sierra. He basically just writes Sam's name in the sand with a stick and then crosses it out, and that's his like villain notes. And it's very, very intense to almost a goofy level, and I'm not really sure yet what's going to happen with Andy. Oh, this is something else I should have asked you, Zach. Who do you think's going to win the season at this point? Who is your winner pick?
My winner pick, actually, at this point in time, I haven't totally decided, but if I'm only going to say one name, my reasoning being following the theme of the season of hubris versus humility. Actually, I'm kind of leaning Genevieve. That might be a bold choice and probably an incorrect one.
I mean, listen, I actually really like that choice because we're about to talk about her. So there's this whole edit that Andy is getting, right? He got the first episode, second episode. This guy's kind of a whack job. He's struggling to adapt to this, to being on the island. And now we're getting, he's a villain. Maybe not a villain, but he's playing. He's intense. And Genevieve goes, you know what? Rome's gone. I don't have any friends on the island. Let me go make a new friend. And she goes over to Andy and they start talking. And without any fanfare, by the way, and I'm sure you noticed this as a film buff, it goes from night vision to full color instantly. There's no crossfade. It's just one shot, black and white, in the darkness, one shot, full daylight. And their conversation continues. Basically, they agreed to try and work together. And so we're kind of looking at a Andy, Genevieve, Saul potential alliance there, which could be pretty interesting down the line at some point, right? Because there's a pretty clear pecking order in this season, and I think we can get into it right away. There's some other stuff we could talk about in terms of the gender breakdown on the tribe, but I don't think it's that relevant to this episode, so I'm good to kind of skip it. And maybe if it comes back next week, Clyde will say, why didn't you talk about this more?
Yeah. I think I agree with that. There, like you said, there's talks of the Women Alliance, since there were a large number of women post-merge. But the way that this episode shakes out structurally due to the challenge, that kind of becomes a down the road thing.
So moving on, let's talk about the challenge. We have a individual immunity, but it's also another one of these twists, team-based things where, yes, they've just merged. Yes, they're playing for individual immunity, but there's got to be a twist because we couldn't possibly handle 12 people voting, right? It has to be only half of the tribe is going to vote. And so what we've got going here is 2 teams of 6. We've seen this before. It's an endurance challenge, balancing both a ball on the end of a pole on your head, similar to, I think we had a challenge with Dee, where she had the balancing, long pole, balance a ball on the end. So you have that over your head, and then under your feet, you are progressively walking down a balance beam that is getting more narrow. While you're doing that, the 12 members of the merged tribe have been split into the blue team and the yellow team. The longest person standing overall, their color does not go to tribal. They get a reward and they get to watch tribal. They don't get to vote. They don't get to be voted out. So half the tribe is just sort of hanging out for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, you could almost say it's like they don't go to tribal and are effectively, a tribe.
Yeah, it's almost like this could have been done 2 weeks ago, you might say.
Maybe.
The last person standing from the losing team has individual immunity. So there's actually the majority of the tribe doesn't have to worry about being voted out tonight. And then that yellow team, spoiler alert, it's the yellow team, will go to tribal and vote somebody out. The teams are Genevieve, Teeny, Saul, Sierra, Andy, and Sam on the blue team. So that's everybody pretty much from 2 of the pre-merged tribes, except for Rachel, who is on the yellow team with Caroline, Sue, Tiana, Gabe, and Kyle, the entire Tuku tribe.
Yeah, incredibly tough.
Absolutely odd man out, but it's an interesting mix here, right? I mean, I always wonder, there's no way you could rig drawing rocks, right? But this is probably as good as you could get it from a strategic perspective, right? It's the biggest tribe from the pre-merge that is a minority in the post-merge is given a short-term majority, right? So it's kind of a back and forth. Hey, if you stick together, you've got this power short-term, but it's going to bite you in the ass next week, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, if I'm a Tuku here, I'm frothing at the mouth. Like, this could not have gone any better for me.
Yeah.
And they even talk about this later in the episode, like with what you said. A couple Tuku members are very much aware of the fact that they could play to their strengths here, but it probably might do a little bit of harm later down the line.
Yeah. So just to run through it quick, how did you feel about, as a fan of a challenge beast, how did you feel about this challenge? Because, or how do you feel about the modern era challenges in general?
I'm gonna be honest with you, Jack. I'm pretty stale on them. I feel like I think this might be the shortest run ever of one of your guests going from I like challenges to I don't think I like this challenge. You very often comment about how the team challenges, the tribe challenges, can't possibly get those 2 words confused this week. The tribe challenges are obstacle course, mud, throw something, some sort of minor skill thing, then puzzle of some variety.
Unlock something, untie a knot, and then do a puzzle. Yeah.
4 or 5 knots for good measure.
Yeah.
The individual challenges, for my discernment, seem to always be endurance challenge that we can build with the least amount of material possible.
Yeah. I mean, this really does feel like they said, hey, we have these balance poles from a previous season. Those are absolutely the same ones they used in a previous season. Let's just make balance beams and sort of whittle them down. Yeah, at least it wasn't, hey, stand on a thing and then do a puzzle, right? We haven't had an endurance challenge flow into a puzzle yet, and maybe that will be the final evolution of the modern era challenge. I won't get into the full breakdown order of who falls when, but Andy falls first, Sam falls last. The breakdown here, or Kyle falls last technically, but blue wins. Genevieve and Teeny both stay balanced the entire time, and it comes down to Kyle on yellow. Kyle, definitely a challenge beast. Are you a Kyle fan?
I think I am. He seems pretty mild-mannered. I know you guys call them meat boys, but he's a vegetarian, so I don't know if there's like Tofu boy can enter the lexicon specifically for Kyle.
Yes, I think it absolutely can. He is 100% a Tofu boy. So Kyle gets the individual immunity idol, which, by the way, might be the sickest individual immunity idol I have seen on Survivor. It's a giant bat with like some rib cage action going on. It's pretty sweet. So the blue team gets to go have baby back ribs, potato salad, corn on the cob, beer and soda back at their own camp. The yellow team is going to go to an old campsite of one of the other tribes that is not the merged tribe to have their strategic talks, right? So now there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens ahead of tribal, right? There's a lot of permutations of strategy here. Basically, either we take out Rachel and it's the easy, smooth vote, or we divide amongst ourselves. Tuku is divided, and hopefully the fragments of Tuku are not still considered a threat that is systematically picked off, right? Because the fear is that Tiana articulates, among others, if Tuku comes out of this hole and there are 5 Tukus and 6 other people. Those 6 other people will find it very easy to clean up house and just knock out as many Tukus in a row as they can. So, all that to say, if you were Kyle, we'll start there. He doesn't have to worry about being voted out, right? So he has the most power, or the most comfort, at least, of this yellow team. Who would you like to see go home?
If I was Kyle, I think the smartest play, like I think Caroline brings up at one point, is to just kind of stick with Rachel for this specific situation. Because Caroline brings up the fact that even if they do this and they get Rachel and they're seen as 5 strong, Caroline, and when she's having this conversation, she's having it with Tiana. She says her and Tiana are not the 2 people from Tuku that everyone's going to set their sights on. She's saying most likely Gabe, most likely Kyle. So the options for Kyle in this situation, assuming that same train of thought, is either we eliminate Rachel and it's either me or Gabe at the next tribal if we're not immune, or I eliminate someone who's below me on the pecking order in Tuku, which again doesn't really help me in any way, but it leaves Gabe around, or I eliminate Gabe, which kind of just leaves me as the potential biggest Tuku threat. So as much as I don't like the idea of sending Rachel home because of unforced, like completely out of her control situations set upon her and bad luck, that's probably what's best for Kyle's game at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really fair point. You know, if you keep your alliance strong, then at least there's some more options. You have a voting block going into the next couple of days that is more significant, right? If you can split 1 or 2 people off of the rest of the tribe, that's a majority really quickly, right? You know, if Andy is really bitter about Sam, obviously Kyle doesn't know this, but if Andy's in a bad mood about Sam and he defects, all of a sudden it goes from 6 to 5 against Tuku to 5 to 6 and Tuku has the power, right? And so I think there is something to be said for that. It's a tricky balance here because there's this inherent kind of drawing of lines, like redrawing of lines, right? Hey, we just got out of the merge. We just got out of Mergatory. We are one tribe. But one whole tribe is completely, essentially like in a terrarium. It's like that, the Rick and Morty episode with the human zoo, or like the alien zoo.
Yeah.
And there's a little terrarium with all the Tuku members and Rachel. And everybody else just gets to watch them and see what happens. And when you draw that line and make them do all the strategy internally, it's going to be hard to come out of that and go, you know, if you're Sue or Gabe, to come out of this division and reach across to Sierra or Andy and say, hey, let's work together, right? Because there's just that wall has been put up. And so all of that to say, I think the maintenance of your Tuku strength and the embracing that delineation rather than trying to fight against it might be the way to go. So how about Rachel? Because, I mean, there's all these conversations that happen, right?
Yeah, I just felt bad.
Yeah. I mean, Rachel is essentially up to the whims of this this majority, right? And the moves that she discusses and tries to make, right? Tries to work with Gabe at one point, or Gabe seems to genuinely want to work with her. They're all just kind of lifelines. And it's that sort of powerlessness that you really hate to see on Survivor, right? Where somebody is like, I'm kind of screwed unless someone wants to work with me or wants me to work for them. If you were in Rachel's shoes, would you have tried to make a move?
Realistically, I don't know what I would have done differently than Rachel. Like in this situation, to go back to your zoo comparison, production is a zookeeper and they're like doing a live feeding where they're just throwing Rachel into the lion's den. Like there's almost zero chance that she survives this by her own merit, which is entirely fair that she actually like how it ends up, with that same caveat, by her own merit, it winds up working out for her. But still, the fact that she was put in this situation to begin with was like, it felt a little ridiculous to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially, I think there's literally the Jeff Survivor recruitment ad in this episode, because they leave those in, right, on Paramount Plus. You don't get the other ads, but you still get the apply for Survivor ad. Is literally Jeff defending his own production choice. He's like, random draws are fun because they're chaotic. Apply for Survivor. Be a part of the chaos, right? And it's like, we're not here for chaos. Like, we could be watching, what's the game show with Plinko? Is that Price is Right? Is that Plinko?
I'm Survivor and like cooking shows are my only frame of reference for reality game shows. So I'll just believe whatever you say.
Yeah, we'll say you could be watching Plinko and be like, ooh, I want to see what strategy the ball takes as it falls down the path, right? It doesn't have any choice. That's gravity. So that kind of drove me nuts. But meanwhile, we have the reward. So the blue team goes back to camp. They get their baby back ribs, their potato salad, corn on the cob, beer. I think production was probably grateful that Kyle was not on the reward, because they had to get the one hot dog for him a couple weeks ago. And so it can't be that hard to find a vegan hot dog. It's got to be harder to find vegan ribs, right? Or vegetarian ribs.
Honestly, I do not know what they would have given that man if he showed up at the reward.
Just like celery.
Cannot imagine the vegan supply chain of Fiji is entirely thorough like that.
Yeah. Well, they have a very robust supply chain. I mean, come on, they got all of that Applebee's last year, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true.
I mean, if they can get the oh God, what's the shark cocktail called? If they can get the shark cocktail delivered fresh in Fiji, they could find whatever it is. Maybe it is like carrots that have been marinated in, I don't know. But so they go back, they enjoy their baby back ribs. I'm saying it a lot because it's my honorable mention later is about baby back ribs. I've never actually consciously had baby back ribs. I've had ribs.
Because you mentioned Applebee's. When Jeff like specifically called out baby back ribs, I had like that Inside Out core memory flash into the eyeball of that Chili's commercial. Yes. And I was like, no way, they got another sponsorship. Let's go. And then it was just like, generic baby back ribs, I guess, at some random hut. But I was still happy it wasn't the Sanctuary.
Oh my God. Wait, was that an Applebee's commercial?
I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell you what chain it was. My brain thought Chili's, but really, I don't know.
It is Chili's. Yeah, that totally hit me as well. So I'm glad I'm not the only one in this Inside Out, memoryscape. But so they feast on their baby back ribs and all the other stuff. And they all pass out, except for Saul, because Saul isn't tired. He's just had a whole meal of ribs. That would wake anybody up. And he decides to go idol hunting while they're on reward. He finds right there in front of them, as part of the cornucopia in the middle of the reward, a scroll is hidden in the decorations. Wild that nobody found it, right? Am I right in saying that? Or was it somewhere? It was in the reward.
Yeah, it was like the reward hut. It was like stuck into the post of the hut, which Saul just happened to be like leaning on. So I guess if anyone was going to find it, it was going to be him, since his body was quite literally blocking anyone else from seeing it.
And so he finds the reward. He finds something. He does not open it while they're having their reward. He opens it a little bit later. And welcome back to Mario Party Analytics. This is the part of the show where Survivor turns into Mario Party on the Nintendo Switch. Saul finds a take your pick advantage. He has to use it today. He gets to send it to whoever he wants on the yellow team, one of the people going to Tribal. I believe he picks, and correct me if I'm wrong, he picks which of the two powers they get, or do they get to pick?
I was not entirely clear on that. Like, I was unaware if he was picking the go home or the vote block, or if he just gave that to what turns out to be Rachel, and then Rachel makes that choice herself.
Yeah. So the two options, block a vote or safety without power, where it's not immunity, right? It's not an immunity idol. It is you get to leave tribal and you are no longer in contention, but you actually have to leave, which is wild. Like I've never seen this before. And I was like, wait, you have to leave? There are 6 people already there just watching and you don't join them. You fully go home and wait. Like,
yeah, the execution of that was odd and like a little bit funny to me because my understanding was like, oh, okay, she'll just go sit with the rest of the people who aren't participating, not like we're just going to send her off into the night.
Kind of wild, but this is a really interesting twist. To go back to our zookeeper analogy, this felt like the zookeepers saying, you know what? Yes, we're doing a live feeding, but we're going to give one of the little kids watching on his field trip one of those coyote defense vests. So like picture like a dog harness that is like a porcupine of metal spikes. This is what little dogs wear to go outside in like Oklahoma and Texas in rural areas. So like if you have a Pomeranian and you don't want a coyote to eat your Pomeranian, you turn them into a porcupine. And so basically in this analogy, Rachel is the Pomeranian, the coyotes are Tuku, and Saul gets to decide who's wearing the vest, if it's going to be the Pomeranian or the coyotes. Let's make an assumption. Let's assume Saul gets to pick both who and what the advantage does, who it goes to and what it does, right? Is there any reason to do anything but give it to Rachel?
Not really, no, because with no knowledge whatsoever of how that conversation is unfolding, like in actuality, Saul's only choice is to be like, how can this be played effectively? And the only real path for that to probably be true is to give it to Rachel. Because what would really happen? Nothing would change if you just send a Tuku member home, like away from tribal. I mean, not like vote out. And then if a Tuku member gets it, 4 of them, you have to assume that the vote they would be blocking is Rachel's. So you're effectively making the same choice with all of them, no matter who you give it to.
Yeah. Either Saul was going to just do some sort of chaos mode, throw this away just to see what happens and confuse everybody, or do the obvious and give it to Rachel. And so we go to tribal. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before tribal?
Yeah. I guess like the way, like in the reward specifically, you see before Saul goes searching for the advantage, Andy also goes searching for the advantage and does it in perhaps the least subtle way possible, of just definitively clanging around the beer bottles and the plates and all of that. And everyone immediately looks at him, and someone like specifically says, in full view of the other 5 people, "You find anything, Andy?" And he just like kind of shame slinks back to where he was sitting.
I completely missed this. I totally missed this.
And I was like, I was beside myself. Like after this guy spends all night Pepe Sylviaing in the sand, and then proceeds to like 0.2 seconds into the challenge due to the exhaustion of staying up all night get eliminated, and then just like also does the worst thing you could do on a reward is just like feverishly look in front of everyone. He's really just like, he was batting 1,000 this episode.
I think it's worth noting all of that, though, because as goofy as some of his antics are, the amount of time he gets in the edit, he's going to have a deep run, right?
Like, oh, yeah, I know. Like, the meltdown from episode 1, I think bought him, like, at least Final 5, probably.
Yeah.
If only for the sake of, like, everyone else on the island looking and saying, well, how can I beat this guy?
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, it could be a shock if everybody thinks he's a GOAT, right? That they're dragging him to the end, and then he goes, has an incredible moving speech at the end. I doubt that will happen. But
I have thoughts on the Andy deep run, since I think that might be Clyde's winner pick. We can get to that later.
No,
if you want.
Now's the time, please.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, like, you have to assume Andy's playing the I'm a GOAT, keep me along strategy. And I admit that could work, but the further and further you get into the season, you have to demonstrate, I think this is a line from Sam's promo, that he's a wolf in wolf's clothing or wolf in sheep's clothing. Andy is trying to design himself as a wolf in sheep's clothing after his sheep behavior. But the thing is, you have to eventually display some wolf characteristics for people to believe you in the end.
Right.
And it seems at almost every opportunity, he has not done that and has continued to like kind of play a sloppy game, as this year is quoted as saying. And this also extends like beyond the perception of his original tribe, where it seems like Genevieve is aware that Andy is a nice number to have and probably useful in that regard, but isn't really that much of a threat. And if someone who really doesn't interact with him very much is able to pick up on that, I have to assume that's the consensus with the island at large.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally fair. I for one, prey on Clyde's downfall, especially considering I think at least the last 2 years, if not the last 3, he's had the final 5 predicted by like a couple weeks ahead of time. Like he's predicted the order of the finale perfectly. And so I would love for you to be right.
I'm sure I won't be.
Nah, come on, man. We're the voices of the people here. We know what's going on. So anything else, or do you want to go to tribal?
No, we go to tribal. My tangent's over.
All right. So we go to tribal. Tribal, by the way, in the hour and 3 minutes of this episode on Paramount Plus, tribal is 23 minutes of the runtime. So over a third of the episode. And I honestly thought there was going to be some twist, because I was like, no way can the advantage change that much. Anyway, first quote, Jeff asks Rachel, was your hope meter undulating today? And Rachel goes, oh, it undulated. And I felt like that moment was, I have a couple of things that I'm calling Jeff out for here, because I think Jeff got a word of the day calendar.
I was going to say, this man recently was gifted a thesaurus.
Yeah, like, dude was really excited to bust out the word undulating. And so, kind of a wild word choice. But then he asks somebody else, and it doesn't matter who, because the question is the point. What's the feeling? Optimistic, pessimistic, or hopeful? So Jeff has 3 options for a yes or no answer. Hey, are you feeling good or bad or good? I think Jeff needs to spend a little more time with the word of the day calendar. But we have this long, drawn out 10 minutes of, wow, we have to make a vote and things will be different after the vote, right? All of the truisms of tribal council and talking about, oh, it could be Rachel or it could be somebody else. And then Jeff says, hey, it's time to vote. And Rachel plays the safety without power. And so she's out, and it's going to be up to the 5 Tukus to vote amongst themselves. Saul, for his part, plays full poker face, does not say or react at all.
He reacts a little bit. I think he reacts a lot. He does some good acting.
Yeah, he's acting, but he's acting enough, I think. If you were Saul in this situation and you go back to camp after this and everybody's going, oh my God, who did that? Do you tell Rachel? Do you tell anybody, or do you keep it quiet for now?
To be honest, I think I would play it by feel. For me, I don't know how long, like what we see, like how quickly things start in terms of conversation after tribal. I would kind of try to discern Rachel's reaction, and then maybe the next day speak to her. I'd also be curious if like other people try to take credit for it. So I would open with that for Rachel and then be like, hey, did anyone tell you who like saved you last night? Because that could be useful information if, someone wants to out themselves incorrectly. And then otherwise, once I do that, I don't know if there's a way I could maybe tell whoever I'm closest with. So at this point, for Saul, that could seemingly be his original tribe members and potentially Andy. But yeah, it's hard to say, because I mean, this is a card you could hold on to for a very long time, but it's also something that's seemingly very difficult to prove.
That weighing of owning a move, and making sure that people who then go out of the game go to the jury knowing that you made that move versus, oh, in the best case, Saul makes final tribal and he goes, oh, by the way, I'm the one who blew up Tuku. I played that pivotal move in the game. Nobody's owned it to this point. It was me, right? I think that's an interesting coin toss, and I feel like it will be completely resolved within 12 seconds of next week's episode. I feel like this is the first thing that happens when they go back to camp is he tells somebody, right?
Yeah. I again, like neither of us were sure on this. The ability to verify this also kind of hinges on whether or not it was Rachel making the choice. Because Saul could go up to Rachel and say, hey man, I gave you that advantage. But if she just got the safety without power, there's no real like knowledge he could impart or use to prove himself. But if she got the choice and she made the choice for safety, he could be like, hey, I gave you that advantage. Like, what was your thought process when you chose safety rather than the block a vote?
Yeah.
Like, that's something only the person who gave you that would know. But we don't know if he actually has the ability to say that.
That's a very good point. Boy, if only somebody we knew was hosting a Survivor podcast who we could ask these technical questions about the show. Well, I guess we'll know more next week. But so Rachel plays safety without power. We get the slow-mo walk off of her. She takes her torch with her, and it was like the Survivor equivalent of walking away from something and it explodes. And I have to imagine that Rachel is going back to a camp littered with the bones of baby back ribs that's just silent, right? So she's just going to go chill for another 45 minutes while she waits for everyone else. So now the Tukus have to turn on one another. The best possible outcome that we talked about earlier of take the easy move, take out Rachel, that's no longer an option. And they scramble, right? Tiana sort of breaks down in tears. She's freaking out about, my goal was to at least make the jury because then you've had an impact on the game, right? You have a legacy in the show. I feel like it's something we've never heard somebody say, or at least I've never heard someone say, of like, yeah, I want to win the game, but my secondary goal, and I'm so close to it, is at least getting to vote in who wins the game. It makes sense, but I'd never heard it before.
Yeah, it also makes sense, but it also is odd to me because you clearly have people who are like notable and memorable Survivor players, debatably more impactful than someone who survived the merge. And so it seems like a very weird line that they seem to very strictly draw in the sand in most of the dialogue this season. So I'm interested, like, what I don't know, why cannot someone who just goes home due to really unfortunate circumstance or something, I don't know, one vote before the merge?
Yeah.
Such as Tiana.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoilers. But
Spoiler
yeah,
alert.
why is she not allowed to be a memorable, impactful player on the game purely due to sequence? Like, I think Clyde's rankings don't always align with the boot order.
Right, they don't. You know, I think there's something to be said for, oh, I made a big move in the pre-merge, and it was such a big move that it put me in the history books, right? Tiana is looking at a game where she hasn't made one of those moves. And so for her, she's looking at essentially, you know, being a footnote in the season. You hate to say it, but, you know, there's a lot of people voted out before the jury, and her options are that or make the jury, right? Or win the game. But so she kind of breaks down. It's absolute chaos, right? Tuku, all of a sudden, they're all having whispered conversations. They're running from one to another, having whisper. Gabe and Kyle are talking about how they can control Sue. Tiana and Kyle are talking about Gabe's got to go, right? There's all this stuff going on. Caroline's talking to people, and two things. One, how brutal for any hope of Tuku maintaining a monolithic appearance for the rest of the tribe, right? Now, for the rest of this season, they will not be able to convincingly operate as a block, right? There's 6 people watching them have this talk, seeing the dividing lines, seeing the weak links, who's initiating conversations, who's nodding, and who's making decisions. That's just a side point of like, wow, that's brutal. My question for you, it has to be a member of Tuku. It cannot be Kyle, who has won 2 individual immunities in a row and is obviously a big threat. Who should go? You're Kyle. We'll put you in the Kyle seat again. Who do you want to get rid of? Because there's arguments to get rid of anybody, but we'll say you're Kyle.
All right. So the Rachel choice has been removed. If I'm Kyle, what I know is that Sue and Tiana are basically opposite ends of the spectrum here. Sue wants nothing to do with her. Stu is very set in that stance. And also, if anyone else on the tribe is a threat, it's going to be Gabe, who has that perception due to Tiana's commentary at the lackluster hot dog reward challenge, where she just kind of blared the Gabe idol hunting announcement to everyone within earshot. So if I'm Kyle and people start looking at Tuku, I feasibly want Gabe around as, a meat shield of sorts. Beyond that, like what you're saying, there's no way to keep up the Tuku unity beyond this point due to everyone just watching these conversations. Everyone's probably seeing the fact that Sue and Tiana aren't speaking whatsoever, and Sue is pretty in lockstep with Gabe. So if I'm Kyle and I'm seeing all of this, I have to take a step back and put all this through my brain and say, okay, I need someone else who's feasibly a threat around. Everyone else knows that Tiana kind of went against the vibe of our tribe at the reward. I think my best play here is to kind of go with the flow of people who I at least have pre-existing relationships with over a longer term, not rock the boat, and at least try to keep up this perception of unity and throw down Tiana as much as I maybe do want to keep my ally around. It won't help me to stay loyal in this situation. Oh, I would say vote with Tiana. It's like the least damaging option for Kyle and for the prospects of Tuku at large based on Tiana's overconfidence in that hot dog reward.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair read. I think that in the power structure, as I see it, of the Tuku 5, you have this little trio, the Sue, Gabe, Kyle trio. And it seems like within that, right, Gabe and Sue are closer, but nobody really knows that. So if you're Kyle, you've got these two, they're safe in your book, right? I'm going to keep working with them. Gabe's a meat shield, Sue's a vote. Caroline has not made a lot of waves, right? She's been, at least in the edit, pretty far in the background.
Yeah, that seems, based on what we see from her this episode, that seems intentional, and I actually was kind of impressed by her commentary, especially at Tribal. She talks about everyone wants to make big moves, and sometimes you shouldn't be making a move just for the sake of making a move. You need to make a smart move when you do make a big move. And I thought that was very on theme, not only with how the vote ended up playing out, but also with the season at large. Like a lot of times, especially in the new era, people are frothing at the mouth to make a big move and wind up shooting themselves in the foot and then subsequently getting eliminated from the game. Like, it was probably last season, if Kenzie made the big move she wanted to make, I don't think she wins the season because I don't think she survives very long after she gets rid of her number one ally, Tiffany. But she ended up not doing that, and she ended up winning.
Yeah, I mean, I think Caroline's had this, she has a good head on her shoulders, but where I think the line gets drawn is, okay, if Caroline's a solid player, Gabe and Sue are safe, they're my triangle as Kyle. The last member, Tiana, has been making waves, right? There was that whole thing where I think it was Gabe that she had to apologize to. There was she said to apologize a couple of times, I feel like, or it was the real estate guy who was the former athlete.
Oh, TK?
TK, thank you. I have him and Q completely lumped in together. They have acronym names. They're both like real estate sales, former athletes who overplay, right? And are overconfident. And TK was around so much shorter than Q that I forgot his name. I think she had to apologize to TK, and I think to Gabe, both for things that she has said or done. Or TK might have had to apologize to her.
Yeah, about like the whole smiling over the loss thing. That was an odd one. But yeah, again, like the only two real conflicts we've seen with the tribe have both involved Tiana, which is unfortunate for her.
Yeah. So if you've got someone who's making waves, who is not as close in your alliance, right? That's just the unfortunate reality of the game. So we go to the vote, 1 vote on Gabe, 3 votes on Tiana. I think it ends up being 4 on Tiana. I don't have the full count in front of me, but Tiana votes for Gabe. The rest vote for her. So Tiana is absolutely shocked, sort of jaw drop. She's still teary from a moment ago. It takes her a minute to get everything together. She gets over to Jeff. Tribe has spoken. By the way, the torch snuffer this season, like the skull with like amber sticking out of it. Sick. Another point here, R.I.P. Tiana. I don't do epitaphs. I don't think epitaphs start until the jury, so she doesn't get one. But I think it's worth noting a trend this season. We saw it with Annika. Is it Annika or Annika?
I think they were pronouncing it Annika.
I always get that mixed
50-50.
We saw it with Annika. I think we've seen it with a couple of other people. The long goodbye, the long post-vote discussion. I'm not a fan of it. I think it sort of bookends the episode, right? We have this whole repair your relationship with Andy thing post-vote, right? Or like post-vote and start of the new episode. And then at the end of the episode, Tiana takes a long time to get out. This feels a little cruel. I mean, she's just been shocked, eliminated from a show. But like, it feels to me like this season, those exits are longer. I don't think it's fair to the person to have their shock fully examined on national TV, right? Did we need every single shot of her going from like finding out it's her to the torch being snuffed? Like, even if it was that long in real life, did the edit need to portray it that long? I don't know. Am I crazy, or does it feel a little exploitative to you?
It certainly does feel a little bit exploitative, but this is a reality show, so I suppose that's kind of the trade that they deal in. And I don't know, maybe the CBS algorithm is telling them to pump up the time between that final vote being read and when this torch gets snuffed. Like I'm sure, like what you're saying, similar lengths of time have passed in seasons of yore, but they probably just cut that down and get on with it. Probably also because they only had an hour back in the day.
See, yore is a great word. Yore is a word of the day word, but you nailed it. I love that word. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely like you said, the algorithm going, we need eyeballs from the vote being read to the torch being snuffed, because that's premium time, baby. Juice up those numbers. But Tiana's gone. End of the episode. So, Zach, we've got winners, losers, and honorable mentions. Where would you like to begin?
Oh, we can start with losers.
Great. Who's your loser?
I don't know if this is controversial, but my loser is actually Sam, because I don't really think anything good happened for him in this episode other than surviving, which happened for more than half of everyone else. And beyond that, I think he was actively harmed by the conversations Andy had with both Saul and Genevieve. Sierra is hurt a little bit by this too, but Sam was the one whose name was actively put out as, this is the guy who suggested getting rid of you if we can't get Rome out.
I mean, yeah, I think that's a fair take. I think that Sam does not know how poor of a position he is in.
Yeah, that's another part of it. Like, if he knew, I would say he probably isn't the loser in this situation just because he could work with that. But right now he's operating with the complete lack of knowledge of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair take. I think that at some point, right, that God alliance is going to fall apart. And when those lines are drawn, he's a pretty big target. And depending on if Andy, the supervillain, can play his cards right, he might never see it coming. Yeah. My loser is Gabe. Basically, he just ran a vote where he's a big target, where Tiana called him out a couple times before this, with it going back to that moment where the women's alliance almost happened, right? Gabe was the target she put out there. So all of the women sitting, observing Tribal, know that he was a threat, right? If Kyle continues his Challenge Beast run and they are trying to take out threatening Tuku members, he's a big, big threat. So he's my loser. How about winner?
For my winner, this is maybe generic, but I picked Sol. I think there was nothing he did in this episode that harmed him. He potentially built a new relationship with Andy. He has the opportunity, if it's provable, to build a relationship with Rachel. And I think both of these are under the radar relationships, which seem to typically be more useful than the overt tribal alliances that everyone was observing with Tuku. So that would be mine.
Yeah.
I'm on the Sol train.
No, I am completely on the Sol train as well. I agree with everything you just said. I think that he's got a lot of room to play. And considering how close he was to going home before the mergatory, it's really great to see that he has emerged into this really interesting spot, because I like him a lot as a player. So I hope to see great things from him. Awesome. Do you have an honorable, dishonorable, a mention of any sort?
I guess one honorable mention. I will pick the more season-wide honorable mention, since I assume I will not be back. That will be Sun Tzu and the Art of War.
Excellent.
My reasoning for this is, this also may not be from Sun Tzu, but there's the adage of don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. And you could kind of use that to summarize almost every single elimination that's happened so far this season, this episode being a bit of a stretch. Going back to episode 1, you had Mr. Pod Save America getting a little too cute with it, and trying to make a move out of Andy's meltdown and subsequently getting eliminated for that. You have TK being a little too forceful with his Tuku vote. You have Keyshawn, again, trying to get very cute when his own tribe goes to tribal. You have Aisha refusing to budge and drawing more attention to herself rather than just go with the flow. You have Annika resting on her laurels so aggressively that she winds up getting voted out of her tribe. And then you have Tiana, who no one interrupted when she was making a mistake with the hot dog incident of 2 episodes prior.
I love that thematically this is our Sun Tzu season. Not the Survivor China full of it, but Survivor 47.
Does Survivor China ever mention the late, great Sun Tzu, who may or may not have been real?
Are you serious?
I want to say he might not actually exist. There might be some contention. I'm going to hit Google.
So, Zach, you are revealing that you are not a deep fan of Survivor Analytics, because Survivor China is chock full of Sun Tzu. Like, there are quite a few challenges focused on Sun Tzu. They are given a copy of it at the beginning, I think. I literally gave Clyde a copy of it for his birthday this year. So you are in great company here with that selection.
Well, I guess I know what I'm doing after we're done recording.
Honestly, the fact that you made that reference without knowing makes it 10 times better. Spectacular. My honorable mention goes to the restaurant chain Delmonico's. Shout out Delmonico's, historical fine dining chain. The current Delmonico's is in the financial district in New York. There might also be one in Chicago. Historically, though, there was one in Chicago in the 60s. And that is the first known usage of the term baby back ribs. So a menu from the 60s.
I was wondering how this was going to tie.
Oh, listen, it's got to come back. And sort of thematically as well, in 1884, back when restaurants were a pretty new concept, right? The modern sort of restaurant really wasn't a thing. James G. Blaine, Republican presidential nominee, attended a dinner at Delmonico's with his wealthy backers. It was picked up by the press and used to show him as disconnected from poor and working class Americans. The menu from the dinner was circulated by the Democrats to show how disconnected he was. He lost to Grover Cleveland by less than 1,000 votes. So it comes full circle. This episode will come out on Sunday before the election. So please do your democratic duty. Get out and vote. And please, God, vote for a woman. And I think we'll wrap it there. Thank you so much for listening to Survivor Analytics. Zach, thank you for being on. We really appreciate it. Do you have anything to plug?
Two things, if I may be so bold. First would be KK Noms on Instagram. My favorite food account, also the only food account that I follow. I mean, it's all the good recommendations around me, coincidentally. And my second would be, I guess, myself. I review movies on YouTube. I'm slightly more familiar with those than I am Survivor. So if you like listening to the sound of my monotone voice, check that out. Roulette Films.
Yeah, go check out Roulette Films. We'll make sure to have a link to both of those things in the episode description. Thank you for listening to Survivor Analytics. We'll be back next week, getting deep into the merge, and we'll see who goes home next.